Ah, greetings and suave evening. I'm Dr. Brother Suave. Dr. Brother Suave. How y'all doing? I'm your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, and your divine social therapist, and the host of Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave. Man, I am just totally grateful. But before I start, I just want to thank God for waking me up with my health, life, and strength. I want to thank God for allowing me to see another day I never seen before. And I want to thank God for allowing me another opportunity to get it right. I am so grateful. Sometimes we just take things for granted, and I definitely don't. So I want to talk about some things about elevation because, fam, the other day I was making a video. I think it's about 2 weeks ago, and I was talking about elevation. And I think that we have to start bringing it up to a higher level. See, I use words like suave amazing, suave tastic, but for you guys, you can use them if you want to. They're pretty suave amazing, but you can bring it up. So when someone asking you how you doing, say great. Say you're doing great and you're doing excellent at a minimum. So even if you're worse, excellent is always better than good. So we have to think about it because when you look at good, you have a lot of positive words out there. But guess what? Good is the lowest one. You got terrific, great, excellent, wonderful, amazing. And guess what? Good is at the very bottom. So just think about it. Think about that. So when you sit there and say God is good, bring it up. He is not good. He is great. So just a little social therapy to get your mind wondering. Okay? So just consider that. So tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about family, faith, and friends. You know, I just want to propose some questions before we get into tonight's topic. So we're going to be talking about family, faith, and friends. So how do you choose your friends? You definitely don't choose your family, but how do you come up with your faith? We're going to be talking about that tonight with our very special guest. So, because it will be a mind blowing, thought provoking, and eye opening experience. So, let's talk about tonight's guest and how we met. Back in the day, I was a clinical supervisor for an amazing organization. It's called Trinity Community Mental Health Center. It's now a trauma informed care center. So, anyway, I was a clinical supervisor. And so every week I meet with my staff and see how they're doing with their cases, give them some insight, some direction, some coaching, and how to be more progressive and use clinical language when engaging and not doing talk therapy, but real evidence-based therapy. And one thing about my guest, she was always mature, always on point, always thorough, always professional. But guess what? She was always empathetic. And that said a lot about her character because a lot of times, people are not empathetic, but she always had the ability to connect to her clients. And I always admired her for that. And so I just want to, you know, give a little background about her. And also I have this theory about staying connected because guess what? She's my guest tonight. And again, as I talk about staying connected, I always try to stay connected with people because you never know what you're going to do. So be mindful about burning bridges, staying connected, and always respecting everyone because you never know what you're going to see. So I'm going to stop talking. And so I'm going to give a little background and just read a little description of tonight's guest. So tonight's guest is Goumah Marie Conde. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's a certified trauma professional. She's the host of the Marriage Village podcast on YouTube. She also co-hosts Christ Above All podcast. She is the author of Finding Her Own Way, an empowerment book for young women. The book can be found on Amazon and Kindle. Goumah is married to Augustine Conde, going on for 20 years. Amen. This coming June. They have three daughters that she refers to them to as Princess 1, 2, and 3. So without further ado, let's bring on the wonderful and talented and beautiful Conde, Miss Goumah Conde. Oh my God, I messed up your name.
It's okay.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing
Welcome.
very well. Very well. Swaftastic. Can I say that?
Oh man, you look at you. You swap adorable. Oh, thank you so much,
You're
Miss
welcome.
Conde. Listen, Thank you. I'm so happy. And again, I'm talking about staying connected. And look at all these years have passed by. And it's always good to stay connected with people, and you give them respect and they give it back to you. And so I'm just thankful. I'm blessed. I'm happy. I'm fortunate to have you on the show. And I know that you're going to be empowering my guests. So tell us and the listening audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, let me first say, I too am blessed to be here. God bless you. Keep you safe. Bless this podcast. Um, and I want to really appreciate you first. I'm big on that. So yes, you were my supervisor, but you talked about me being empathetic, and the truth is, you truly are also empathetic. So when I walked into that room that day and I was introduced to you as my supervisor, we clicked. We clicked right away. We connected on stories from the continent, and the fact that, of course, we're two Black people, right? And but I was
Mm-hmm.
your sister from the continent, and you identified me as that right away, and that
Yes.
meant a lot to me. So I want to appreciate you and for staying in touch. You're really
Yes.
good at checking in, so thank you for doing that. My name is Goumah Conde. I am from Liberia, West Africa. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I did work with Suave at Trinity. I've been in the field for some time now. I predominantly now work with couples. That is my passion, couples and young women, um, because I'm all about building what I call kingdom families. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I spend my day doing. I am married. I'm blessed to be married to my very good friend. Um, and we have three princesses, as you said. That's how I refer to them.
Mm-hmm.
Princess number one, two, and three. And I'm just really doing God's work. That's what I'm doing. I'm serving. That's what I like to
Yes.
call my work. I serve.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you do. And I'm gonna tell you, one of the things people really aspire to have their family intact, their profession intact, their relationship with God intact. And that's one thing I can admire about you, because you always been a family person, but you always was intact with your profession, and you was always mindful of your mindset, your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, and your family. And that's why I always talk about things from a social, spiritual, and clinical perspective, because we need that balance, and I just always admire you for that. And so tonight, I just want you to be comfortable, share. I'm going to have some questions for you. I'm just letting you know I'm going to be asking you some questions. So
I know you
so
will.
one yes. So one of the questions, we talking about family, faith,
Mhm.
and friends. And so again, I said, how do you choose your friends? You
Mm,
know, how because we don't choose our family, and how
mhm,
we choose our faith.
mhm.
So, what's your perspective? How do you choose your family? Because we want people in our space, you
Yeah.
know, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. So I've always been number one. I've always been very selective. That's me. That's personality. That's me.
Okay.
Um, I'm much of an introvert. I love people, but I'm
Hmm.
very much an introvert. Right. So, and
Yes.
I'm sure you can understand that. So, I'll go out of my way for anyone. I'm here for you whenever you need me. I also need my
Yes.
quiet and my space. That's how I kind of rejuvenate. So because I've been selective, I haven't really had a whole lot of friends in my circle. I have a lot of acquaintances, and that I appreciate. Now I've had some of my close friends from seventh grade up until now. It's pretty much been the same thing. I've added some
Okay.
on, yeah, from seventh grade, believe it or not.
Mhm.
And I've added some, but in terms of being married, because that's what I think your question is about, being married and now choosing my friends, I always say that my friends need to have my core values.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
That's what I'm looking for. So now, as an individual, I have my core values. And then as a couple, we have our core values, right? So when I'm making friends, I'm observing a lot, especially couple friends. I'm observing, do they have our core values? Do they treat people well? Do they respect other people, no matter
Hmm.
what their social economic status is?
Yes.
Okay. Are they people of faith? I'm not just saying Christian. Are they people of faith? Do they believe in God?
Hmm.
Right. um and so, coming from the African continent, this is important to me because there are people who may not be Christians, but they believe in God, in this higher power.
Hmm.
So do they believe that? Those are things that I'm looking for. What kind of conversations are they holding,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um,
Yes.
what do they spend their time doing? Because it's great to have fun, it's great to play. I enjoy all of those things, but I also like to live with purpose.
Okay.
So, do I see purpose there, right? Because we're creatures of meaning. We are people of meaning as a whole. So, are they creating meanings? Are they purposeful with their lives? Those things matter to me. So that's really what I'm looking for. And if they have
Okay.
my core values, we're good.
Absolutely. And see, this is one of the things that we have to be mindful. You cultivate and embrace with like-minded people for mutual betterment. And so one thing about um, watching who you are, because see, what happens is you need to have people who are have some of your similar core values, because what happens if they don't, you may pick up some habits that you may not be able to shake off. And
Correct.
that's spiritual. You understand? So you want to be mindful. And sometimes people don't understand how they pick up issues of substance abuse, language, mentality, behaviors, and next thing you know, it jumps on them. And again, bad habits are easy to form, and so you want to be mindful. And this is one thing about when I talk about equally yoked.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always just in the church, but equally yoked in terms of your peers, your relationships. You know, those things are important.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to tell some of this before I continue. I want to say hi to Tanika, Gigi, Cleveland, Brandy, my cousin Ashante. Thank you guys for joining in. Thank you so much, Tonda Kennedy. Greetings. And so again, when you have good people, it's nothing better than having good friends and good people around you.
Yeah.
So the next question I'm going to present to you, again, we don't choose our family.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we find ourselves making choices to try to sustain or maintain those relationships with family members? Because family members sometimes can be toxic as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you know what? One of the blessings that came into my life was a classmate. When I was in seminary, I did go to seminary. I did my
Hmm.
some of my schooling there. Um, and this friend of mine, who was my classmate, said to me, we were talking about boundaries, right? And I
Uh-huh.
struggled with boundaries a lot as a young miss because culturally I have village mentality. That's just me. I believe
Uh-huh.
in the village. So, I'm
Yes.
always looking out for the village and bending for the village and all of that. And one of the things that she said to me was, Goma, you know what I've learned? And I said, what? She said, I learned that having boundary is not selfishness, it's self-respect.
Can you say it again?
Having boundaries is not selfishness, it is self-respect.
Absolutely.
And that changed my life
Mm, mm, mm.
because that is pretty much what I do now when it comes to family members or anybody, right? Because again, yes, we don't choose our family, but what I know is I can be kind for you, I can respect you, I can continue to pray for you even when I don't want to be in your company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's what I practice now. I can remove myself from a toxic environment very easily now because I can still hold that person in prayer. And to me, that's the best gift to give that person rather than
Absolutely.
being in the present and be completely irritated half the time.
Yeah. But one of the things people have to understand, boundaries. Boundaries doesn't mean I don't want to have anything to do with you. I have to establish it because you're crossing them. And sometimes the biggest thing I could say with boundaries is people feel so comfortable
Yeah.
that they think they can say anything or do anything without being challenged. And that's how some of the things that people have, especially people pleasers, and people pleasers have a very difficult time setting boundaries. And one of the things that I noticed about some of my clients and patients, they struggle with that. And one thing I do, I'm so happy that I pretty much gained a lot of experience and a great skill to helping people establish boundaries, because sometimes people are people pleasers and they feel very guilty about setting boundaries.
Mhm.
But again, that's self-respect, you know, and you can't see it as selfish. How you
Yeah.
doing, Sandra? Is one of my old college friends.
Mhm.
I'm happy everybody's showing up. So
Nice, nice.
listen,
Yeah, no, it's not selfishness. But yes, what I will say about that. Because we talk about these things, and most times what my clients tell me is that's easier said than done, and it's true. So
mm,
what I normally will say to clients is start with the people that are furthest from you, right?
hmm
If you're practicing, start with the people that are not your relatives. They're just your acquaintances who are crossing boundaries. Start establishing boundaries there.
Mm-hmm.
and then bring it in, come closer and closer and closer, because you become
Mm-hmm.
more confident, right? In
Yes,
doing that. Yeah.
absolutely. And so now going back to we covered those choosing friends. How do you choose your friends? And you
Mhm.
don't choose your family. So how do we come up with our religion? How do we choose that? Because sometimes people don't even know why. They just could be just going as a result of generation.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah. So well, I think that's okay too, right? Because I think there are two ways to choosing this, to choosing your
mhm,
religion. One is you're born into it. That's our reality,
yes.
right?
Hmm.
And then when you become more mature, right, that mature Christian, then you choose a relationship with Christ. For me as a Christian, that's
Okay.
my path, right? You choose now a relationship with Christ. So it's not, your dad is telling you to do it, or your mother is telling you to do it, or your
Hmm.
caregiver are making you do it. You are not. That's my hobby. Hi, love.
Yes.
You're now just doing it because you feel it's right, because
Hmm.
you know it's right, right? So I think that's the difference. You are given this as a child. For most people, we're given our religion because our parents
Hmm.
go, they take us along. But then later on, we get to choose that.
Yes.
And we choose it by researching, by participating, by fellowshipping, right?
Hmm.
We do all of those things until we feel safe.
Hmm.
And when we feel safe and we feel settled, we know when we're there.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm so happy. So listen, um, right now we covered some things. So I'm looking at the time. So what we're going to do is go into a quick commercial break.
Mhm.
We'll be right back with Dr. Brother Suave. And we're back. Um, thank you, thank you. Before we get into more questions, I just want to thank everyone for showing up and giving their comments. Just want to acknowledge my beautiful fiance Camille. Thank you for tuning in. One of my coworkers, old coworkers, congratulations on your retirement, Mr. Dixon. Also my college classmates, Sandra and Mr. Conde, thank you for showing up, supporting your beautiful wife. Look at you. Um, and also Linda Johnson. Just thank you guys. So listen, we're gonna continue on. So listen, you wrote a book.
Mhm.
So we need to jump into that. So tell me, oh, what's that? Bring it over? Yes. Finding her way. So y'all get
Mhm.
that? Get that? So listen, what inspired you to write it and tell us a little bit about the book?
Mhm. Well, so part of my story that I haven't shared
Uh-huh.
with the audience is that I am a 9-year war survivor. I'm from Liberia, West Africa.
Uh-huh.
And my country endured 14 to 15 years of brutal civil war, and I lived there for 9 of those. Okay. So prior to that, I already knew I was blessed in a way because I had a mother who and I were very close, We had a really, really close relationship, and she was very vulnerable with me throughout her life, very open with me, and that helped me a lot. But I
Mhm.
had many friends who did not have that same privilege. And then came the war, and I saw how many young women were just looking for guidance and direction because a
Mhm.
lot of them lost their mothers or their primary caregivers who were very present, and some just
Mhm.
didn't have it at all. Then, of course, working in the field in foster care, as you know, I also saw many young women who were struggling for answers to basic life questions, right? How do I maintain healthy friendships? How do I manage my money in college? How do I, select my dates, right? What about faith? So I decided I was going to write this book. I started writing this book in undergrad school, set it
Mhm.
aside. And when I started working in foster care, I felt a strong urge to do it. And so that's really why I wrote the book, just to answer some of the pressing questions, but very basic questions that young women have on a day-to-day basis. So the book covers everything, from faith to dating to money to choosing a career to everything is in there. And that's really the impetus for the book.
Yes, well, that says a lot because one thing about, as you know, I'm an advocate for males, black males, and stuff like that. And one of the things I always say, stop blaming us when we haven't had anyone to teach us.
Yes.
And so people say, well, you men aren't this, you men aren't that. And I'm like, excuse me. It's not my fault I don't have a father. And
Mm-hmm.
they said, well, he left. No, you chose a very bad, irresponsible person, and you saw it and he showed the signs from the very beginning, but you chose to move forward. And so now I don't have a father to show
Mm-hmm.
me how to be a man, nor did you advocate to get real strong man to be there for me. And so
Yeah.
what happens is, and we sit there and say, how, and I always say, well, you expect us men, how are we supposed to become men through osmosis? So a lot of times people are missing that void. They're missing a parent to show them how to be responsible, and they're missing that. So I want to commend you and thank you for doing that because it's definitely probably empowering for a lot of young women. So
You're
thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. You're very
Uh,
welcome. Yes.
so you mentioned about 9 years during wartime, I believe you
Mm-hmm,
said.
mm-hmm.
So
Living through the war.
obviously there were probably a lot of people experiencing trauma. So let's talk about trauma.
Mhm.
So what is trauma? I mean,
Well, so I'll give you a definition pretty much as a trauma professional. Okay.
yes.
Um, but of course, I have my lived experience with trauma,
Hey son. Uh,
So, but trauma is really any bad event, right,
mhm,
that happens to a person that overwhelms that person's nervous system and
mhm,
prevents them from functioning in a healthy way. So it throws our nervous system off balance.
yes.
That's trauma. Now, it doesn't stop there. Trauma is also when good things that are supposed to happen to us don't happen to us. And that also throws our nervous system off balance. So, like
Mhm,
neglect, right? Abandonment. Those are things that are supposed to happen. Our parents are supposed to be there,
uh-huh.
right? They're not supposed to be absent and missing. Uh,
Yes.
so, also when good things that are supposed to happen don't happen, we also
Mhm,
experience trauma. Mhm.
yes. Yeah, I'm glad you said it because a lot of people say I'm not traumatized.
Mhm.
We just moved 100 times, you
Correct.
know.
Mhm.
And so, and a lot of times, this is why it's so important to be educated on trauma. So
Yeah.
thank you, because one of the things I notice about a lot of people always saying, I don't have trauma,
Mhm.
and I always ask them, you ever been in a car accident? They say yes. I say you have
Mhm.
PTSD. No, I don't.
Mhm.
Listen, and I always ask them, how did you after you had that car accident? How did you drive at that point?
Mhm.
They were saying they was hyper vigilant, they was fearful, they was very extremely cautious. Like,
Mhm.
see, I say, you remember it? Post. It's after that
Mhm.
traumatic event.
Mhm.
And so what happens is we have to educate people and let them know. And so it's such a stigma on it, on PTSD, and they always create these no,
Mhm.
it's just traumatic and it affected the nervous system. Now they're a little anxious and and,
Mhm.
and so they're like looking out for something to happen. So
Right.
and,
You
and,
know,
and there's nothing wrong with it, but
so
educate.
I always tell people this. I say, think about it this way, and I've given this analogy before for some of
Yes.
our followers on social media. I say, think about it this way. Our brain serves a purpose for us. Our brain is our best friend. right?
Yes.
Um,
My best friend.
yeah, right. And we have different parts of our brain, right? And one part, that particular part that's called the sympathetic nervous system, its
Hmm.
sole job, its only job is to protect us from danger.
Hmm.
So it is always walking beside us, helping us to avoid bad things from happening to us. So
Yes.
anything bad that happens, say you're crossing the street and a tree drops before you and you jump back, right? You go that way. That's your sympathetic nervous system alerting you to remove yourself from that danger.
Hmm.
When you remove yourself from that danger, that part of the brain doesn't shut off. It doesn't stop because you've removed yourself. It keeps reminding you that something bad could happen, right? And that's kind of how trauma is. So if you think, I always ask people all the time when they say, I have nothing, nothing traumatic ever happened to me. Sometimes
Yeah.
I will ask a simple question as, who taught you to say I love you?
Hmm.
And then they pause, right?
Hmm.
Or something as, who celebrated your first birthday? And then they pause, right? So trauma has a large range, and we can
Yes.
go from small T's to what we call big T's, which are complex trauma, which is something what I would have coming as a war survivor, the more
Hmm.
complex trauma, right?
Hmm.
And rape survivors, right? The more complex trauma. But the small T's are what we call attachment injuries. Those things our primary caregivers were supposed to give us that they
Yes.
couldn't give us. And it
Yes.
a little wound inside of us, right?
Hmm.
That's trauma also. So
Yes.
trauma is not insanity, folks. It's not
It
insanity.
is not.
Okay.
And Tonda Kennedy, she wants to say thank you for making that clear.
You're welcome, Tonda.
So one thing about this is okay, you have a Deborah White. She said, "This is awesome, my dear. We appreciate you. Much love, many blessings."
Well,
Thank you, Deborah. So listen here. So because I'm gonna, you see what you just said. So what I'm gonna do is when you say people try to learn how to remove themselves from
mhm,
danger
mhm.
and traumatic situations. Now watch this. So how does trauma affect marriages? Because a lot of times, it could be marriage relationships, and you see how some people always blame other people about the relationship, but they don't realize they're taking that trauma into
Mhm,
another relationship. So the
mhm.
question I'm going to present to you: how does trauma affect marriages?
So it shows up in the way we cope with stress and the
Mm-hmm.
way we respond to love. Okay? The way we
Say that
cope with,
one more time for the listeners because they may want to write it down.
yeah, it shows up in the way we cope with stress and the way we respond to love.
Mm-mm-mm.
So it shows up in our day-to-day interaction. Let me break this down for us. Say, for example, we're talking about small t's, right? Let me use small t's. Say I grew up with a family and I'm never allowed to express myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, God created me with emotions, right? But I'm
Mm-hmm.
never allowed to express myself. Every time something painful happens to me, I'm told to shut up, to
Uh-huh.
look next door and look at the kids who are struggling. People love to use Africa for this one. Look at those kids in Africa starving. What are you complaining about, right? So, all of these things that parents will say to children. But so what kids do is I learn to remove myself. So in my home, I'm not allowed to express my pain. So I go to my room, I close my door. I'm quiet, I'm calm. My parents are happy because I'm a good kid, right? I'm not disturbing anybody. I'm not insulting. I'm not fighting back. I'm a good kid. Then I go on and I get married.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have a conflict with my spouse. My spouse wants to talk. I go to my room, I shut the door, or I go to the guest room and I close the door.
Mm.
How's that going to work for my marriage? Exactly. And that's how trauma shows up in our marriage. So, the way we learn to soothe ourselves, right? When bad things happen to us, the way we learn to soothe ourselves, it works for us. It is a coping mechanism for us and it's perfect for us. But when it comes to our interpersonal relationships, it can become a problem. So shutting down, right? Being defensive, being dismissive, all of those are trauma responses. Being angry, those
Mm-hmm.
are all trauma responses. And that's how trauma shows up in our marriages.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, people who have experienced trauma, they always find some way to justify it, say, I don't want to argue, so therefore I shut down.
Correct.
And they think
Correct.
that's productive and is actually counterproductive.
Correct. Well,
Yeah.
because again, for them, it's a defense mechanism, right? So shutting down suits them. Shutting
Okay.
down suits them, right? But it is unhealthy.
Yes, it is. And that's the thing.
Right?
Because people are not properly educated on how they respond to trauma. So we have Tonda Kennedy. She said she ran, was
Yeah.
emotional,
Yeah.
and made split decisions to protect her. You
Perfect
know?
example. Perfect example of that avoidance, removing
Yes.
yourself. Hmm.
Yes. And people move themselves and they think because they never get closure, they never address it. And every time they want to talk about it, they just leave.
Hmm.
And
That's correct.
so and it doesn't. So that being said, so how can spouses support each other when trauma is present in a marriage?
Yeah. So, I talk a lot about learning attachment styles, right? And the reason why it's important to know attachment styles, we have four different attachment styles,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all centered around anxiety.
And
Now,
yes.
what is anxiety? Anxiety is just the direct result of worry and fear. That's anxiety, right? What am
Uh-huh.
I worried about? What am I fearful of? If you can answer those questions, you're most times able to reduce your anxiety if it's not chemically
Oh my
induced.
God. Hold
Are
on
you
one
there?
second. Yes. My there you go.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Continue. Don't stop.
Yes. Yes. So anxiety is the result of fear and or worry, right? So if you can answer those questions, what am I worried about? What am I fearful of? If you don't have a chemically induced anxiety, meaning it's not induced by medication or an imbalance to your hormones, you're able to really help to quiet your anxiety. Now, when we understand our spouse's attachment style,
Mm-hmm.
are they anxious? Are they avoidant? Are they ambivalent? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they disorganized? It disorganized is more the violent type. That is more complex PTSD, and that person needs to be in therapy. Okay.
I'm sorry. We can work this out. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So is my spouse anxious? Is my spouse ambivalent? Is my spouse avoidant? Is my spouse disorganized? If I understand his or her attachment style, then what it does is it allows me to be able to walk by my spouse, right? Not take
Yes.
things personally, right? But then be able to fight whatever this battle is that my spouse is fighting as a team.
You hear me? I don't know what's going on. Okay.
There you are.
Yes.
Yep.
It's echoing. I'm gonna check my engineer. Hello? There you go. Go ahead. Don't stop.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really it. We talk about in marriage work, we talk about learning to tackle the dragon as a team.
Yes.
Look at trauma as the dragon. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is a dragon that's trying to intrude your marriage, right? Your personal space,
Exactly.
right? So rather than looking at your spouse as the enemy, look at that trauma symptom as the dragon and join your spouse to slay that dragon. That's how
Yes.
we do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing, it's teamwork. Remember the marriage is a sacrament. You come together as one and you fight those enemies that try to destroy it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you look at trauma as the enemy, the dragon, and you guys
Mhm.
got to fight it. So
Correct.
regarding friendship and marriage, what is
Mhm.
the healthiest way to choose friends as a married person? And are there boundaries? And how do you and your spouse address those issues?
Well, so for us, I mean, in my household, it's just really simple. We're on the same page regarding friendships, right? We assess our friends. We look for all of those things I talked about before. Do we have the same core values? In terms of even the children, because those things matter. If you have children in your marriage and you're raising your children a certain way, is that other couple raising their kids in a way that is in alignment with what you're doing? Not perfection. We're talking about alignment here, right?
Okay.
So are the core values similar? If so, for example, if I don't give my kids alcohol and my friend wants to give their kids alcohol, is that something that I care to be involved with? I'm just using that as an example,
Yeah.
right? If so those are all things that matter.
Hmm.
And we have to be mindful of these things because
Yeah.
guess what? We are going to interact. And you cannot be interacting and now you have an attitude with adult folks because
Mm.
you don't agree with what they're doing because you all are at some gathering now and you're seeing reality. So
Okay.
observe these things early on and then be very mindful of those things. That's really what you do. Be on the same page with your
Hmm.
spouse. Hmm.
Okay. I have a question because
Hmm.
sometimes people may have a problem with saying, well, you think your children too good for me.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, you want the best for your child. But people who are not investing in their children and taking the time, they tend to get highly offended when
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they wish they would invest in their children, try to make the children, because at the end of the day, when you don't invest and you don't talk to them and you let them hang with anybody, there's a high probability that they end up picking those habits and they find themselves going to jail. And jail is expensive when it comes to bonding, attorney, court fees, probation fees,
That's right.
and a record.
That's right. Well, so, one of the things that I'm known, people who know me know this well, for telling my children is you're not better than anybody
Hmm.
and no one is better than you. Okay?
Yeah,
You're not better than them, they're not better than you. So that's the first thing. And I think if you're giving your kids this foundation, then you really shouldn't feel anyhow about having clear boundaries around raising your children. They're,
hmm,
they're your responsibility.
absolutely,
Okay? And you owe it to them to do the right thing, and you owe it to God to do right by those children.
absolutely,
So, there's no time for feeling bad when it comes to raising your children. It's not about perfection. We will not be perfect. We are always evolving and striving towards that. So it's not about perfection. It is simply about raising healthy children and healthy,
absolutely.
healthy, healthy to the best of your ability. That's all you
Hmm.
can do, right? So there's nothing to feel bad about as long as your kids are not going out thinking that they're better than other people. So that foundation has to be laid. But then, other
Okay,
than that, don't feel bad.
absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because in your book, you talked about friendship as well.
Hmm.
So you help young women understand friendship. So tell us a little bit about it because you basically said it, but let's go ahead and
Hmm.
go into regarding the book.
Yeah, no, I do. I talk about the importance of, I had to learn the hard way. Some of the things that I had to learn regarding friendship was very simple. Even you also have what we call cultural differences, right? Even those
Mhm.
things matter. So when you're befriending someone that comes from a different culture and you're from another culture, you have to observe what things are important to this person, right? So let me give you an example. I lost my mother abruptly. I had a very good friend. I lost my mother abruptly. This friend meant no harm. For that friend, what was helpful for her was to come to see me on that day,
Mhm.
not bring her kids, and her kids and my kids were very close.
Okay.
Not bring her kids to sympathize with my kids, not get her kids involved with my kids whatsoever. Come in by herself, leave her kids, leave the husband, come in and just sit with me for a little bit. I have another friend who is from my culture. When this happened, she came over, she brought her family, she brought her kids. Her kids took my kids and carried them away to
Mhm.
play and comfort them. She sat with me, we spent time together. You see? Now, that doesn't mean that I should be angry at my other friend who couldn't do this. But what it means is I need to understand that we have differences within our culture.
Yes.
Okay? So it's really important, and those are the things that I teach young girls. Observe the culture, observe the way this person is with people. Core values, core values. Again, I can't use those words enough. It's those the core values are really, really important because that is what you're going to come down to at the end of the day. How
Mhm.
do we treat people? How do we interact with people? You have to be mindful of that. And then,
Yes,
of course, respect.
absolutely. And so as we go into this, before we go, we're going to transition into marriage and relationships and how those things affect the individual. So what we're going to do is go into a quick commercial break. This will probably be our last one. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So these two questions. One is, why do you think marriages are challenging for many? And we're going to be going to the communication on marriage. But I'm going to let you answer that question. Then I'm going to go into that.
Well, again, I think marriages are challenging because we lack understanding of each other.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my couples all the time when they come in, they go, we've been married X amount of years and we're struggling. I say, yeah, let's talk about the hard questions. Did you all have the hard conversations
Yes.
early on? And
Mm-hmm.
9 out of 10 times they tell me no.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're in limerence, right? We're in limerence, everything is good. We're all about the butterflies and all the affection and the care, all the things that we desire. We're giving it very early. But then again, our realities, they settle in at some point. My
Mm-hmm.
childhood stories follow me, they don't go anywhere, right?
Yes.
If you don't know my childhood stories and you can't appreciate those stories, then when they start to show up, we're going to have conflict.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So we have to have the hard conversations. And because we don't have them early, because I don't know how you attach to other people, because I don't know it, when you start attaching to me in a way that I don't like, now we're having problems.
Yes. And when you say telling your story is communicating. And so
Hmm.
people always say communication is the key to successful relationships. And I always believe effective communication. You have to tell the small important things. See, people like to say, well, these are small, but everyone knows the smallest can be the most significant. It's just like the coronavirus, super small, the AIDS virus, super small, but it can destroy your life. So hiding and not disclosing those small things can just destroy our entire relationship.
That's correct. I agree. And so I tell people all the time, if a person cannot take you along with your story, then that person is not the person for you. There is somebody for you who can hear your story and live with your story
Mm-hmm.
and help you walk alongside you as you heal the things that you need to heal and as you mature and develop in the areas that you need to develop in.
Absolutely.
So don't be afraid. Now, if you're already married, it's not late. Start having those conversations, right? I say in my own marriage, I think, you talked about admiring us earlier. And I think what's been the blessing for us is that we're never afraid to have hard conversations. We're not even afraid to have painful conversations.
Y'all hear
Because,
that?
because one thing that we've gotten to be, we haven't mastered it, but we are good at is repairing very quickly, right? So we can have the painful conversations, but we know that we're going to repair. We're not going to, hold grudge against the other person. We're not going to be resentful. We're not. So because we repair, we know that we're safe with each other and we can have hard and painful conversations. So it's not late.
Yeah. It's funny because I remember it would say cry now, laugh later. See, you
Mhm.
can have that hard conversation at the beginning. See, a lot of times people are afraid to have the hard conversations because what they say was they're afraid to lose the person.
Yeah,
But you don't want to waste their time and then lose them when they find out. So you say if they can accept who you are, your story from the beginning, you can work and navigate through those things. But sometimes people feel deceived because people don't want to have those hard conversations. And so I like to have hard conversations from the very beginning. One, you know who I am. I'm not the representative. You know what I stand for. It's not fake. And sometimes people are so fascinated with the idea who a person is. instead of dealing with the reality of that person. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to tell people who you are, what you stand for, and then communicate in an effective way so they can clearly understand what you're saying and who you are.
Yeah.
And
Healthy communication.
yes.
Healthy communication. That's what I like to say, right? You want to have healthy communication. So what does that look like? That
Hmm.
communication looks like, I feel safe having this conversation with you because I'm telling you my truth, but I'm making sure that you also feel safe as I'm having this conversation with you.
Yes.
Okay? So both of us are feeling safe. And that's important. That's a healthy conversation. Now, and I want to be mindful here because there are some people who will say, yeah, but I can't, I wouldn't dare go that deep with my spouse. And there's room for that because some people are not well yet to receive all that you may be giving them.
Yes.
And
I've
if you're,
heard that.
yes, and if you're already married to that person, then go slowly, go slowly, but build trust and safety. And then you open up as you go along. There's always room for improvement. Don't be
Hmm.
afraid. Don't be afraid to do it. Mhm.
Yes. I saw Brandy. I think she gave a comment if they weren't ready. Something I wish it could come back, but she said then they
Did not
wasn't
for
meant to
you.
be.
Mhm,
Yes. And
mhm.
also it says they weren't yours in the first place. If that's all it takes, I'm just saying. And then, and also, I think Mill said something about safety is key. So
Mhm.
a person has to, okay, feeling safe is key.
Yeah.
So again, sometimes, and I can say I've been guilty of it, just bringing too much because person needs
Mhm,
to feel safe, you
mhm.
know. And
Yes.
sometimes people don't necessarily disclose the truth, and it could be perceived as lying and holding back.
Correct. Correct. That's
Absolutely.
correct. Hmm.
And so how do you think, again, communication? So how do you think money creates issues in marriages?
I don't think money creates issues, Suave.
Hmm.
I think our relationship with money creates issues.
Go in detail about that.
Okay. So there's nothing wrong with having money, right? There's nothing wrong with it. And everybody's not going to be wealthy in this
Hmm.
life. Let's just be realistic. Everybody's not going to be wealthy and some will remain wealthy. So that's our reality. Okay. Now, it's how I view money. For some people, money is viewed as a resource.
Hmm.
It is used for kindness, it's used for compassion, all of generosity, all of those things. For some people, money is actually for survival,
Yes.
right? So if my core value regarding money is that money is for as a resource, money is a resource, then I'm going to be looking to give and do more charity with my money. And I probably don't know how to say no a lot. May not have healthy boundaries around money. Well, if my spouse says relationship with money is that money is for survival, then my spouse is going to be trying to bank every penny we get and
Hmm.
and not spending it. And that's why people have conflict. So it's not that money is the problem, it is our relationship with money.
Okay.
So how do we work to understand each person's relationship with money? And then how do we develop a relationship with money as a couple?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know. So if money is for survival for me, and money is a resource for you for to do good and all of that, then we come together and we say, okay, I want us to survive, and I say, well, I want us to do good. All right, so let's say we make $10,000 a year.
Hmm.
How much of it are we going to use to survive? What are we going to save? What are we going to spend for our household? Right? That's for survival. How much of it are we going to use as a resource? Are we going to bless people? Are we going to do charity?
Hmm.
Let's set up. So you see what I'm saying? Set yourself up as a couple. Have your own relationship with money as a couple,
Hmm.
and that's how you avoid the challenges and the conflict.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes people don't even want to have that conversation about it. That
Hmm.
can create a challenge. And
Hmm.
so, but when I look at money in terms of relationships, sometimes the lack of money can be an issue.
Hmm.
Because people say money is not everything, but it's important that you keep money to eat, shelter, and all those things. And sometimes the lack of money can become an issue, you know. And so, like Brandy here, she says, my
Hmm.
husband and I see money as a tool,
That's
you
correct.
know.
So they see money as a resource. See,
Hmm.
and they're on the same page. But what if you had the opposite, where both people didn't have the same core values around money? Now
Yes.
you have to create your own relationship with money as a couple. The reason we fight a lot It's because we think it has to be my way or your way, rather than it being our way. What is our
Yes.
way of doing things?
Hmm. Well, that's one of the things. As you see, Brandy was on the show before, and
Mm-hmm.
as you see, every time she comes, it's all about her and her husband, which is she has the mindset of family, and that's the thing when it comes to coming together. But again, Brandon and her husband obviously had strong conversations
Mm-hmm.
about that together and being on the same page. And that's why I see sometimes money when people are not talking about it because someone is using money as a tool, the other one is using it as for purpose of because they never had it, so now they holding on
Correct.
to it. And
Correct.
so that's again from some past trauma
Yeah.
of overcompensating because
Mhm.
it's like a hoarder, they holding on to it because they think they're never going to have it again.
That's correct. That is correct. And you know I love Brandy. I told you I have to meet Brandy. So since you're
Oh
watching
man,
Brandy, I
yes,
love the disruptor because we Brandy, I have similar core values around family,
yes,
right?
yes.
It's family first. It's my husband first. I don't care how the world feels about it. He's the head of my household, right? He's my leader. I submit to my husband with respect. He allows me to have my voice. I have no problem with submission. I have no problems with those things because we have mutual respect for each other,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
But see, that's the thing, and I'm gonna go into that because again, having that and those make healthy, functional relationships when people
Mhm,
understand those core values. But when
mhm.
you have people coming out of a totally different, like we talking about generational value system, which is mores. So one person coming out of this value system where they don't understand about family, relationships, and marriage, then the other one does. They end up bumping heads because they have different core values, and a lot of times they create a lot of conflict in marriages.
That's correct. And I'm not talking about marriages here where you have abuse because you have toxic relationships. And
Yes.
it's hard to be submitting to anybody in those environments. So let's just clarify that. But in a case where we're just letting our small t's come up, right? Those little
Yes.
insecurities, those little there's no need for that. Mutual submission, respect, those things are important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So so what I'm going to do is wait, hold on. It says a lot of women think submission is a curse word, but wonder why they can't find a decent man. Shaking my head. Because
Mhm.
again, they have demonized submission because they think it's like bowing down, not even understanding. But go ahead
Correct.
and expand on that because
Correct.
you're my guessing.
Yeah, no. So I mean, submission is just it's respect. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
It is respect for that person. No one person does everything well. Okay. So
Hmm.
there are areas that your spouse is going to just be really good. And in those areas, you have to respect that that person is capable of
Yes.
doing those things, right? And and we have hierarchy. You know, I don't I am female for a reason. I love being female. I
Hmm.
do.
Say that
Okay.
again.
I am. I'm female for a reason. I love being female.
Yes.
I don't want to compete with my husband in terms of gender. I don't want to
Hmm.
do that. I want to be a woman and I want to be treated and respected as a woman.
Absolutely.
And I want to treat him and respect him as a man. And that's it.
Absolutely.
You know, there's no conflict there.
Mm-mm-mm. And I think people understand, and people always get caught up, like she was saying, submission is like a curse word. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes people look at role as a curse word. Here's a woman and here's a man. You know, and I remember hearing this one day was saying, "You stay in your lane, I stay in mine. We're gonna have no accidents." And it doesn't mean I control you and you control me. It's just that I'm operating in my role as a husband and a leader and the head, and you operate as my helpmeet and as a leader as well, because we equal leaders, but we have our different roles at certain times. And I
Yeah.
think we have to respect those things because you are a woman and I am a man.
Mhm. I agree. And no one said you can't be a powerful woman as
Absolutely.
as a submissive wife. No
Yes.
one said you can't be an educated woman as a submissive wife.
Yes.
Whoever said that?
But again,
Right.
so many people they
Mhm.
say it, and that's why I was happy that she says that people look at submission as a curse word.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Brandy. I really
Mhm.
appreciate that. So we got
Yes.
about 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do is get to this last question. I'm going to skip a question, and it
Mhm.
says, what's the importance of faith in marriage? Does it matter? And how about being equally yoked? And what's your thoughts on that?
Mhm. So here's how I feel about being equally yoked or unequally yoked, we should say.
Yes.
Um, th- I tell my clients all the time, especially when I do premarital counseling,
Mm,
being unequally yoked is not just in terms of your faith.
absolutely.
It's
Mm-hmm.
in every aspect of your life.
Absolutely. Say that again.
Being unequally yoked is not just in terms of your faith, it is in every aspect of your life.
Balance.
Correct. And again, we come back to the same two words, core values, because we can be unequally yoked because our core values don't align, right? The way we view family may not be the same. The
Yes.
way we view money may not be the same.
Mm.
The way we view material things may not be the same. The way we
Mm.
view education may not be the same. The way we view intimacy may not be the same.
Mm.
There's so many, the way we view food, health may not be the same. So there's so many ways we can be unequally yoked. It's not just through, faith alone.
Yes.
So we have people who come from the same faith who are unequally yoked.
Yes. You see it all the time. You see it. Listen, you see it all the time as a person sit there and say, because they look at faith. So they'll go in church, the person maybe just got out of rehab, never had a career or any money. And she said, oh, that's a good man of God. He
Mhm,
quote that Bible really good. Next
mhm,
thing you know, she's so fascinated with that
mhm.
because the equally yoked faith category and not realizing in arts. They not she likes to go and look at museums. He's not interested in that. They may not be equally yoked in terms of a career. They may not have the same core value systems in terms of upbringing. They may have actually a whole total different perspective on drinking, alcohol,
Mhm,
um, music, and
mhm.
so and even the developmental. Because
Correct.
one of the things I notice about unequally yoked relationships when it comes to developmental, um, when one person is like super intelligent and the other person is super unintelligent, and then they
Mm,
say, it end up being their child, so to speak, because they're making
mhm,
all the decisions,
mhm.
and it's supposed to be a joint decision, but they find themselves making all the decisions, and that can be increasingly frustrating.
Or the person who may not have the education may also have some insecurities about the person who has the education.
Yes.
So you have it both ways, right? And so all of those things matter. So there are 14 different kinds of intimacy. 14,
Mm-hmm.
right?
14. I heard that.
Recreation, religions, crisis, emotional, commitment, conflict, sexual, so many different levels of intimacy. So think about it. If you are not yoked in all of these different ways, you are going to have challenges. Now, faith is important because you pray together, you stay together. That's what I believe, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can you can pray about your struggles together. You can meditate upon things together. It helps you to bond. So yes, it
Yeah.
is important, but it is not the only thing that you need to be yoked.
Yes, because I've seen and I had to coach a particular person who was a bishop,
Hmm.
and you know how people have their title in religion, and so someone paid me to give him some coaching. He was a bishop.
Hmm.
He was an unemployed bishop. He was a bishop who was extremely overweight. He was a bishop that
Hmm.
had hygiene issues. He was
Hmm.
a bishop who wasn't driven,
That's right.
but he felt good being edified by being called a bishop, and every now and then he get a chance to speak. But other than that, he couldn't provide for his family. He was a liability. Developmental, he was having a lot of temper tantrums,
Hmm.
and it was just huge disparity in those things. But he knew the Bible,
Yep.
and you were increasingly frustrated because they had a child and he couldn't do anything. So I just want to tell you thank you. It says Brandy says we're going to need another episode about those 14 types of intimacy, Sister Queen. Okay.
Absolutely, sister.
Okay, so listen, I want you to tell everyone how they can get a copy of the book, how they can get in contact with you. Give them your social media contacts and website or any of those things so that they can get in contact with you.
So the book is on Amazon. You can get it in Kindle and you can get it in paperback. Okay, it's called Finding Her Own Way, an empowerment book for young women. Also, on social media, I have a group, a closed group. It's called Your Marriage Village. I'm on Instagram as Your Marriage Village. In Your Marriage Village, I share resources all the time to help couples. That's mine giving back. We have a YouTube channel. is Your Marriage Village on YouTube. So you can subscribe. I have a library that I'm building with just resources for couples. That's what it is. It is a library with resources for couples, because every couple is not going to do therapy. But I want every couple, especially in my community, to be healthy.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm creating this resource, and that's what this is on YouTube. Is Your Marriage Village. So Instagram, Your Marriage Village, Facebook, Your Marriage Village. Send a request, and I'll let you into the group. YouTube, Your Marriage Village.
Well, thank you so much, Goumah. I appreciate you. I know the people appreciate you. This was a mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening experience for all of us.
Amen.
Everyone listening, be sure to share, subscribe, and just let people know. I'm happy and I'm blessed. So this is Dr. Brother Suave. Really having a wonderful event with Goumah. So this is Dr. Brother Suave signing out. Just remember, great minds for great places. I love you. I mean it. Bye-bye.
This program was made possible by Neighborhood Planet Broadcasting Systems, Neighborhood Planet Network, and from contributions to NPN TV from viewers like you. Thank you.